Hey, welcome into Strictly Speaking. Good to have you. We've got a great one for you today. Lieutenant Colonel retired Robert Buzz Patterson, U.S. Air Force, is a decorated combat pilot. He's a best-selling author twice over. He's a conservative speaker. 20 years of service. He flew missions in Grenada, Somalia, Rwanda, Haiti, Bosnia. He earned the Defense Superior Service Medal and the Air Force Air Medal. From 96 to 98, he served as senior military aide to President William. Did I just say prison, trying to say president? I wonder if there's that was Freudian. President Bill Clinton. He carried the nuclear football, which automatically should grab your attention. He's, again, the author of 2 New York Times bestsellers, Dereliction of Duty and Reckless Disregard, and Conduct Unbecoming as well. A frequent guest on programs all over the internet platform space, the podcast space, and cable television, including the O'Reilly Factor back in the day and Hannity. He has sharp insights on national security and politics, and I cannot wait for this conversation. I think you're going to love it here on Strictly Speaking. This episode of Strictly Speaking with Bob Frantz is brought to you by Get More Tank. What is it? Get More Tank is a fuel catalyst that's going to save you money every single month on gas. Get More Tank is a tablet with active ingredients that add big mileage to every tank. Made in America, the Get More Tank formula has been used for decades by trucking companies and heavy industry. Now the Get More Tank formula is available to people like you and me. Get More Tank works in any gas or diesel engine, cleans your engine, lowers emissions, and you'll feel improved engine performance every time you step on the gas. Get More Tank works for cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, four-wheelers, mowers, and blowers, contractors, electricians, plumbers, painters, lawn service companies. Get More Tank is going to save you money and extend the life of your engines. If you're an owner-operator running your rig around town or across the country, Get More Tank is going to save you money too. A 5-pack on sale only at getmoretank.com for just $22 plus shipping. Use promo code Bob and get 10% off of that. Save your money and get better engine performance at getmoretank.com. That's getmoretank.com. Buzz, thanks for joining us, man. How are you?
Doing fantastic, Bob. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm real good. You know, I want to start our chat before we get into the nuclear football, your stories upon stories about your time working with the Clintons and so much more. We chatted off the air before we began rolling on California. You're a Southern California guy. And I figured I wanted to cut that conversation short and have this actually on record. Why do good, strong conservatives continue to? I mean, you know that the massive amount of Californians are fleeing the high taxes, the high gas prices, and everything else that comes, and the big terrible blue government that comes with California, and they're flocking to Texas, and they're flocking to Tennessee. And they're flocking to Florida in many cases. So whenever I talk to guys like you, I want to say, why are you still, I ask Larry Elder this all the time. Why are you still there, Buzz?
You know what? It's a great question. And trust me, Bob, we've talked about leaving a million times. But, it's a situation where we've been out here for a long time. My wife is from Northern California. We live in Southern California now. Our kids all went to school here, educated here. 2 of the 3 of them live here, right around the corner, as a matter of fact. So, I think that someday we may leave. In the time being, I've chosen to stay here and fight. I actually ran for Congress in 2020.
Yeah.
Up in the Sacramento area. I lost, but we did pretty well for Republican in that district. And so I'm just going to stay here and fight as long as I possibly can. We've got some great friends, a great church, and I do believe that there's potential, Bob. I know if you looked at so in the 2024 election, California Republicans made inroads in 72% of the counties in California. Now, we don't control those counties necessarily, per se. We control some, but we are making inroads. And, I think the people have just had it. I mean, I think the Palisades fire, when you burn out a bunch of wealthy elite Democrats and take away their properties and don't give them a chance to rebuild their homes, there's a lot of people who are really upset with Gavin Newsom right now, and I'm going to help them make that transition from the Democratic Party over to the Republican Party in California. So we're happy here. I love the weather. The politics suck. Prices suck. The price of gas is unbelievable. The tax structure is just really exorbitant. But we've been told by friends who have left that if once you leave California, you're probably not going to get back in. So if you're here and you're
Yeah.
happy, you might as well stay because the price of admission back in is pretty high, um, especially in terms of house prices and rent and that kind of thing. So we're here for the time being until our youngest is 8, is 19. He plays college volleyball locally, and if and when he decides to go out of state, then we'll probably vacate. But in the meantime, we're going to hunker down here and do our best.
Well, you know what? That's a great story. It's a great answer. I mean, you got family there. And you know what? Even though you don't like all of those other things about it, home is home. And there's something about it where you don't want to leave home and you don't want to leave the family and the kids and the grandkids and things like that, too. So I totally get it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
you know what else I love too, Buzz? You want to? I just as soon as you said we're going to stay here and fight, I just in my head I saw Trump going fight, fight, fight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you do you kind of have to. What do you make of Gavin Newsom's sudden turn toward moderacy? Are you
Well,
buying it, or is this just 2028 prep?
well, it's BS. What it indicates to me very loud and clear is he's running in 2028. He's going to run for the presidency in 2028, and he's so egotistical and narcissistic, Bob. He thinks he's going to be the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party. That's the kind of guy he is. So this whole thing is an act. Gavin Newsom is a chameleon, and he will be whatever you want him to be when he needs to be to gain power or maintain power. And again, I like being that antagonist to people like him for both Trump campaigns. Well, actually, all three. I was semi surrogate for the Trump campaign, and I got to go around the state of California and talk to people who are independents, maybe be on the fence. So I got to be the voice of reason in terms of being in those kind of places. And now that we're going to have a new governor pretty soon because he's timed out. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in California governor wise going forward. I know Kamala Harris is probably going to run. Adam Schiff, the usual suspects like that. And I'm here to poke them in the eye, Bob. Quite frankly, I'm just going to make their life a living hell, and
Good.
I enjoy doing that.
You know, you called him a chameleon. I was going to go to a different reptile. I think he's a snake. But here's the thing. I think he's really good. I think he appeals to the left. And I mean, you look at somebody like who are the other suspects for 2028? I mean, you look at people like Gretchen Whitmer's name is bounced up there. She might be considered more moderate and appealing than somebody like Kamala Harris was. But J.B. Pritzker, Bernie's too old. AOC just barely, I think she just barely turned 35 and is able to run. But you think they're going to follow an avowed socialist who poses in front of empty parking lots by fences and cries like there's kids behind it? I mean, the stories here of
Yeah.
all of the Democrat 2028 possibles. Gavin Newsom looks like he can be a vote getter,
Yeah,
and I think
they've
he's
got a
very
pretty
slick.
empty bench. They got a pretty empty bench right now. I think
Yeah.
that presumptively. Now, here's the thing about Newsom that Democrats love and elitists especially fawn over. He's really smooth. He looks good. He's a handsome guy, and most importantly, he has a lot of money behind him. He's got
Mhm.
Pelosi cash behind him, and in California, that goes a long way. I mean, if you can run for an office and you've got Pelosi backing and George Soros backing, you're going to go a long way. And
Right.
he's just good enough, and I think, as you pointed out, smooth enough that he's going to fool a lot of people. And in my warning to folks that are watching this right now, don't California America because you're not going to like it. And he has destroyed this state, and he will destroy the United States of America if we let him. So he
Well, it's
is,
going to take people like you to tell that because you're
yeah,
it's exactly right. I mean, look at California compared to the rest of the country and all of the measurables that matter. We're going to
yeah,
need you guys, when that time comes. And I know it's weird. We just finished the last election, but we're going to need you guys to tell the truth. What really is, California like? Talk about the crime rate. Talk
yeah,
about the gas prices. Talk about the gas taxes, the high everything taxes, everything that he has done and been responsible for, the lack of accountability for a lot of the disasters that happen out there. Because like I said, he's smooth. He's slick more than just his hair is slick. And I think he's going to fool a lot of people without you guys out there to kind of sound the alarm.
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's a requirement for us to be out here. I mean, and he glosses over things incredibly well, but I'm about oh, 45 minutes from downtown LA, and I go down there only when I have to because it's a freaking war zone. It is a third world verging on fourth world, down around Skid Row, and what Newsom has done for 8 years is just throw billions and billions at the homeless problem, and he doesn't intend to fix it. Now that he's probably going to run for president, he wants to fix it after all these years of hemming and hawing and saying it was an affordable housing crisis. It's not an affordable housing crisis. It's a mental illness and addiction crisis, and he is perpetuating it by handing out free needles and heroin on the streets. And that's not just L.A. That's San Diego and San Francisco too, and parts of Sacramento. And it's he has destroyed the state. And again, I can't be clearer about this. He will destroy the U.S. if we are dumb enough to elect him to the White House.
Yeah, I know, I agree. And I was tell you last thing on this guy. I don't want to waste too much more time on Gavin Newsom. I want to talk about Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and a lot of your experiences. But um, what I'm struck by is, I guess was it last summer 2024, when Xi Jinping and the whole China contingent came to San Francisco,
Yeah,
and they had that place, which ordinary, and San Francisco used to be such a beautiful city, uh,
it is.
and it is just absolute trash. But suddenly, for a weekend visit, it was pristine. You couldn't find a needle, you couldn't find a puddle of urine, you couldn't find a pile of crap, all of the stuff that is there for regular Americans. But when China comes, look at what we're able to do. If you can clean it up for a weekend, you can clean it up.
Well,
It's
yeah.
just, it's a desire about whether you care about the actual residents and citizens there.
Well, they know how to do it. Obviously, they've shown they know how to do it. They can clean this crap up and get these people away to better conditions. Actually, quite frankly, for them personally. So we've shown that it can happen, and we've shown what we can do over a weekend if we put our heads to it. And but you're right. Now that the Chinese went home, and we're right back to where we were. And in fact, things have gotten worse probably.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, Buzz. I want to get into some of your stories and some of your experiences in the
Okay.
Clinton White House. I want to do that by kind of doing a backwards progression here, or I mean, I guess that would be a regression. I want to go with James Comey. James Comey, as you know, just a short while ago, caught a lot of hell, and in fact has had an investigation opened up by the DOJ into his 8647 walk on the beach. Look at what I just happened to find here. I thought it looked cool. This shell formation, 8647. Get rid of Donald Trump. While
Yeah.
Donald Trump is overseas, mind you,
Yeah.
and the guy who's already within less than a year faced two different assassination attempts.
Yeah.
He's out there 86 for a former director of the FBI. I'm doing that to ask you, because the other thing Comey is best known for is spending 40 minutes in front of a microphone or behind a microphone and listing all of the crimes Hillary Clinton committed with her email or her email server, her computer server in Chappaqua. And then at the end of 40 minutes is saying all of these things that she should be charged with, saying, but we're not going to charge her. So that's my way of progressing back to your experiences with Hillary Clinton and exactly who she is from what you watched and observed through the years that you worked with the Clintons. Take it from there.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background for your viewers. So the military aide carries a nuclear football, and as such, has to be around the president 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I did that for 2 years. Um, so I had an office in the White House and a bedroom in the White House, and everywhere the president and the first lady went, I went. So vacations, Marine One, Air Force One, Camp David. Uh, I went, so I got to know them
Was
both.
that an appointment, Buzz, or was that a volunteer? Did you want that job, or did they say
No,
this is your job?
No, in fact, it's a job you can't apply for. I was squadron operations officer in Northern California, Travis Air Force Base, and I got a phone call from the White House, and I had been selected as one of six to interview for the position, the military aide. And again, I kind of in the back of my mind knew that the job existed, but I really hadn't paid attention to it, and really had no intention of wanting to do it. And in fact, I didn't want to do it. They hired me anyway. Um, so it was the Pentagon, the DoD picked me out. The White House sent me through a 3-day interview process with 5 other peers. Went through the interview process over a 3-day period, and even though I told them at the White House, I said, when they asked me why I wanted the job, and I said, quite frankly, I don't think I do. Yeah, I love Northern California. I'm single. I'm dating my now wife. Back in those days, and they said, well, they called me back and said, well, we know you told us you didn't know if you wanted the job, but if we offer it to you, will you accept it? And I said, let me talk to my girlfriend. And I called him back and said, yes, I'd be happy to. I'd be proud to. So I flew back to Northern California, Bob, and sold my house, packed up, sold my house, and moved to Washington, D.C. And a couple of weeks later, I was working at the White House, sleeping at the White House, and carrying around the nuclear football. And like I said, I wasn't quite part of the inner circle, but the Clintons didn't really have any choice because I had to be next to their side, and I didn't have any choice either. So I had to be by their side 24/7. So I got to know them both really well, which I talk about a little bit in my first book. And they're polar opposite personalities. And Hillary, which is probably the most reviled, hated female politician on the planet. I got to know her well, and I have to agree with all those takes. Hillary Clinton is profane, uh, arrogant, power-seeking, manipulative uh, woman, to put it politely.
I could tell
Yeah,
you were struggling on which noun to use there.
I didn't know what level your show goes, so I didn't want to just throw it out there.
Yeah,
But
you know what? You do what you want to do. I'm not a I don't have virgin ears, and neither is anybody who listens. So if I can, just because of the nuclear football part of this, we'll come back to Hillary in a moment because I want to hear more about that. It's what, a suitcase, a briefcase, a satchel,
it's a
essentially is what it is.
satchel. It's a satchel. Historically, it was actually first conceived under JFK during the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's always been a military aide serving a president, but with the advent of nuclear weapons in the 1950s with Eisenhower, of course, and then JFK and the Cuban Missile Crisis, JFK realized he needed to have his military aide not only there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but he was the guy that's going to carry this satchel. It's heavy. It goes everywhere the president goes. The only person that knows how to get into it is the military aide. Not even the president knows what the codes are to get into it. He has his own codes, which is for something else we could talk about later. But so yeah, I was that guy. And there's only
Is there a backup to you? I mean,
there's
in
a
the
there's a
unlikely event that you stroke out or something happens to you, he doesn't have the codes. Only you do. There's got to be somebody else, right? In the event that it's
well,
needed.
the vice president also has a football. So this is
Okay.
an interesting tidbit. So the president's football is the active football. The president's military is the military aid. No matter what, wherever we go, it's the president so the president has codes, and the military aid has the football. So it takes both to launch nuclear weapons. So the codes are a credit card size document that President Clinton kept rubber banded to his rubber. He didn't wear a wallet, so he kept his rubber band. He kept his codes rubber banded to his credit cards
Hmm.
in his pants pocket. So he had them 24/7 until he lost them, which we could talk about a little bit too. But he actually lost them down the road. But the military aid then
It
has
doesn't
everything
surprise me
else.
as the number of times his pants came down. I'm not surprised they fell out of his pocket.
Well, that
I'm being a
and it
smart
happened.
ass a little bit here, but it's probably not that far from the truth. I'm just
No, and you know what? And it happened ironically, or not, maybe not ironically, it happened in conjunction with Monica Lewinsky. So the day that he told me he'd lost the codes was the same day that the Monica Lewinsky thing hit the national press.
wow.
But yeah, but you have to have so the military aid has the football, and I can't tell you exactly what's in there, but
Mhm.
it's everything the president needs, no matter where he is in the world or she is in the world, to be the commander in chief, to communicate uh, securely to the Pentagon through the military aid. It also has the targeting in there for multiple different. You name a nuclear scenario, and then it's got that broken down in this chart which talks about talks about mass casualties and the whole nine. It's very sobering. Which again is when I first got that job, it was like, can I do this? And I didn't want to make sure I wanted to make sure I didn't screw it up. And so I got very intuitively involved in what was in the football, how to do it, what the different options were. And then the president had the nuclear codes, but it takes the president and the military aide with the football. But they collaborate, and it goes down to the Pentagon, the National Military Command Center, NMCC, which is where the launch instructions go out. Keys start turning in silos and in nuclear submarines, and bombers get airborne on their way to whatever the target is. So it's basically president, military aides, conduit, Pentagon, start launching stuff.
So the president has codes. You have the codes to the football. You get it opened up, and he gets in
Okay.
and starts all of this. He doesn't actually enter codes into whatever keyboard is inside that satchel and then launch from there, right? This is
No,
just what he
no,
needs to
no.
tell the folks in military command, NORAD or wherever, to fire, right?
Correct. In fact, we don't use a laptop or a keyboard for exactly the reason that we are always concerned about the potential for hacking. So, unlike Russia and South Korea, who actually has theirs uh, uh, digitized, and they do use laptops and they do all that kind of stuff, the U.S. has chosen, and I think rightly so. And I was actually really proud to learn this, is that we want to keep the human element involved, so that if the president has to be of sound mind and body, the military aide has to be of sound mind and body. They have to communicate efficiently, and then it goes down to the Pentagon without anybody else getting involved. So the Pentagon, the National Military Command Center, is theoretically the button. So there really is no button, but the NMC's Strategic Integrated Operations Plan, which is their nuclear plan, is the actual button. uh, Theoretically the button. But yeah, it's I
Right.
mean we it's all human based, and but again, he can't do it without me. I certainly can't do it without him. And then the NMCC needs both of us to be on the same page of music. And here's the other thing, Bob. The timeline. So if you consider a possible launch, say from either Russia or China, we only have 15 minutes, maybe 15, 20 max on the outside for the president to get that notification, the military aide to get with the president to make a determination. How does he want to retaliate? That determination then goes to the NMCC. So the NMCC doesn't have time to, there's no time for the SecDef to get on the line. We try to get the combatant commanders across the world. We try to get those 4 stars on the line, but it's not. Sometimes it's time prohibitive. So we would practice it. We practice it every 2 or 3 months, and just think we would do different scenarios. So okay, we only have 8 minutes this time, or we have 20 minutes this time, but we got to get it launched regardless, right? So we have to make a decision and do it. And Clinton would participate in that about once a year, and he actually was actually pretty, other than the fact that he lost the codes, he was actually pretty interested, and he asked some really intelligent questions when I was around him. And I, and now fast forward to Joe Biden, and I can't imagine the military aides that were working for Biden, what they were going through, just in terms of their own internal, emotional struggle with, can this guy tell me what to do? Is this guy
Yeah.
of sound mind and body that he's gonna kill 300,000 people, and I'm gonna help him? There's so I was actually pretty pleased with Clinton overall.
Well, yeah, I literally jotted down those words when you said sound mind and body. The president has to
Yep,
be a sound mind and body, because I wanted
yep,
to ask you about Biden and I don't want to forget. So I wrote it down, and I'm glad you addressed it.
yep.
Um, there's so many follow up questions to that about him, but I want to ask just one other question about the football and what our capabilities are. Have you seen? There's a TV series called Paradise. It was like a
Yes.
7, 8 episode. Did you see it by chance?
I've heard about it. I have not seen it.
Okay, it was pretty compelling television, to be honest with you. I can't remember what platform it's on. It doesn't matter, but the point is, there's one of these extinction level event type things that happened. They ended up building a city in a bunker, underground, in order to try to keep the population alive, or at least a small percentage of it. And up above on top, before all of that happened, they did the nuclear football thing. And the president in the series had two codes. One code was he entered in and they ordered the launch of all of the nukes to, retaliate against the other nations that were doing the same thing. And again, the reasons are kind of irrelevant. But the second thing is that he could either launch the nukes that destroy or launch the EMPs, all of the EMPs, which would fry every circuit, including the nukes, to stop the other nukes from hitting the United States and so forth. And the question was whether or not which one he should do, if either, because the nukes, of course, would lead to destruction of everything immediately,
Right.
whereas the EMP would not destroy, it would destroy the nukes, but every other circuit. So it would kind of set the world back 500 years as far as capabilities. Does that exist, or is that just great TV?
You're on to something. I really can't get into the whole EMP thing. I
Okay.
mean, we have that capability for sure. It's one of those unspoken. We don't really talk about it because we don't want the Chinese and the Russians to determine how best to countermeasure what we have, and vice versa. They don't talk about
Yeah, they
theirs
have
either.
those too, right? They've got
Oh yeah,
EMPs.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and that's probably right now more than a nuclear attack. I think the EMP thing is probably more likely sooner than later, and I also think it's you're gonna see it disrupt the entire world in terms of aviation, air traffic, radio communications, TV, all that stuff, internet. It's all going to go down. And if you can imagine this country, like I live in the LA area, if you can imagine LA just going off the grid, it's
Completely.
going to be talk about Armageddon. You're going to have people fighting in the streets,
Oh, no
and
question. And
yeah,
any of the preppers who got ready for such a thing, the bunker
yeah,
people, the food rations, the seeds, and everything else, great, good for you. But guess what? You are now, target number one. Everybody who doesn't have that is going to be coming to take your stuff and whatever you have. So
yeah,
it
yeah,
would be
and
like the worst.
we have our escape route. I've got one for my family. We know what we're going to do. We're just far enough out of town that we can get. I can get I can get away into the mountains pretty quick without having to go on the major highways. So, because
Got
that's
it.
going to be a mess. That's going to be a mess. But
Got it.
yeah, we have that. I really can't get into a whole lot of that.
No, you
Uh,
don't have to. I did.
yeah,
I just found it fascinating, and the fact that you carried the football. I just kind of want to know what our capabilities are. But what I really want to get into a little bit now, and you're still telling Hillary Clinton stories, which is hilarious on your Twitter. I was looking at your X account earlier today, and
yeah.
you had another Hillary story, and you can feel free to tell as many of those as you want. But let me ask you this: after your experience with Bill and Hillary, and I think you almost described her as something other than woman a few seconds ago, what was your level of concern when the 2016 election happened? And she was in the final week before the election. She had what, 6, 7, 8 point lead over President Trump.
Yeah.
It was the stunner of all stunners that Trump won. But you had to, since you got to know her so well and to observe her so well, what were you thinking when she almost became the president?
Well, one of the reasons why, so I was an Air Force pilot for 20 years and a Delta Airlines pilot for 16, and I retired from Delta in 2016 because Hillary was looking like our next commander in chief, and I wasn't going to sit on my hands in a cockpit and let that happen. So I retired early from Delta, 5 years early actually, and went to work. I hit the road, telling people about who Hillary really is. And I've got a lot of skeletons that I can talk about in terms of Hillary. So I started doing that in 2016, and thank God Trump was elected. And she's still out there, and I just I like being on X because I get to troll the hell out of her, and it's a good time. You know what I mean? And
You do it well.
and to the point now that she's got her replies turned off. So I know that I've landed a couple of shots. So I know that some of those are landing, some of those are hitting hard. But yeah, I mean Hillary.
Well, speaking of shots, can I ask you the other kind of shots? I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
trying to be flippant
no,
here
no,
about
no.
this,
I'm
but I
happy to
mean, a
talk
lot of
about anything.
People who know things about Hillary, well, let's just say there's a lot of missing people,
Yeah,
and there are a lot of people who know things about Hillary that dare not say anything because they're afraid of being suicided. Uh,
right.
just to be blunt, did you ever think about that?
Yeah, yeah, all the time. And I think there's a lot of there with some of those people. For example, when I was the 2 years that I lived in when I was at the White House, I had a condo in Georgetown, rented a condo for those 2 years. It was good when I needed to get away or I needed to go get my suits dry cleaned or whatever, I had a place to go, and then my wife and I got married and she moved in. But 2 blocks away from our place in Georgetown was a Starbucks where on the heels of Vince Foster, I got there right after Vince Foster apparently was offed. Uh, I got there, I'm in the job, and then a couple weeks later, I find out who Monica Lewinsky is. And then a couple weeks later, another intern from the White House, Mary Mahoney, I believe is her name. I didn't know her personally. I knew of her. She was murdered in a Starbucks after hours one night and locked into the cooler. And she had no, I mean, she was the only affiliation she had other than Starbucks was the White House job that she had. And she was an intern and she knew Monica. So there's something there. I know a lot of people that knew them from the Arkansas days that talk about, um, things that they know. And I will tell you this: I would not put anything beyond her, Bob. Not a single thing. I mean, the Seth Rich thing.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stuff out there that we are still waiting on answers for, and I think she is quite capable of having been involved in a lot of that.
Give me some of what you observed of her treating people, whether it be on Air Force One, because you traveled with the president everywhere, or any place else where you saw the real Hillary come out before the fake, facade comes on for the cameras.
Let me give you a couple, Bob. When I first arrived into the White House, this was May of 1996. So we're going into the reelection campaign, right? We're hot and heavy campaigning. The Clintons were, and I was with them. And when I first got there, my predecessor said so that Hillary has a rule that when she's in the moving around the White House hallways, she doesn't want to see anybody, look anybody in the face, have any exchange any kind of pleasantries. He said, I don't care who they are, senior staff, you, doesn't matter. She doesn't want to see you, and she doesn't want to have to look you in the eye and say, good morning or good afternoon or whatever. So that was the first thing. Second, so I got okay. Well, I'm going to try to observe that, but I don't think I like that idea very much. If I happen to be moving in something that's important and I happen to see her, I'm just going to say good morning, Mrs. Clinton, and keep moving. So I was one of the people who didn't dive into doorways, office, and I saw people literally adult men and women, senior staff members of the White House, diving into doorways in the White House hallways to avoid having to encounter Hillary. The other thing is, when I first arrived there, Bob, she again reelection campaign in '96. She decided that she didn't want military uniforms in the White House, military uniforms in and around her husband. She wanted to downplay the presence of the military around her husband, and so she wanted us to wear. She wanted the military aide, me, to wear suits, just like the Secret Service guys were. And the Secret Service, I had a problem with that security wise because I have the nuclear football, and the Secret Service guys have to protect me, and they have to know where I am at all times. And you're going to have a lot harder time if I'm wearing a black suit and sunglasses, determining who I am. So I
Mhm.
said, well, that's a security issue right there. And then the Secret Service guys came back. They all came back and said they agreed 100%. So we all approached her, approached her staff, and said, "Would you let her know that this is really not smart and we don't endorse this?" And she finally relented, but she didn't like the military. She didn't want us around her. I always thought, her husband's the commander in chief. I would be proud to show that I'm the commander in chief of a military with an Air Force officer by my side, not trying to hide from it. But that was the approach the Clintons took. Um, And one other situation, this is kind of an anecdote. I think I talked about this on X maybe last night. Uh, so we were going on a vacation to St. Thomas on Air Force One, and we had just left Hilton Head, South Carolina. It was a big Democratic confab there, Renaissance weekend. And so we had spent time there, and we were flying down to St. Thomas for January 1st, New Year's, celebrate the new, Clint's gonna take a week in St. Thomas. He's gonna golf, she's gonna hang out on the beach. Chelsea's gonna do her thing, whatever. So we land at like midnight on Air Force One in St. Thomas, and I hear, so I'm about halfway back in Air Force One, and I hear Hillary literally screaming at people. So I go, okay. So I've got to go into the breach, right? I got to figure out what's going on and see if I can help because that was my job too. So I get up there, and apparently Chelsea has left her school books on her bedside table of her hotel room back in South Carolina. Chelsea is, in her senior year in high school. She wants to study for her finals, and all of a sudden, the fact that the books are still in South Carolina was not Chelsea's fault. It was everybody else's fault, but Chelsea's. So she basically turned to me and says, "Do what you can to get those GD books down here first thing in the morning." And I go, "Okay, I got it." So I basically called back to the White House and had them launch a valet, a Navy enlisted guy, to fly down commercially to Hilton Head, find the books. He found them, thank God, and then fly commercially into St. Thomas, and then bring them to my room first thing in the morning so I could walk them over to where the president and the first lady were staying and give Chelsea her books. Now, what really got away with me, Bob, it wasn't that I had to jump through hoops for anything for like that, but the fact was that her 18-year-old daughter was not at fault, but everybody, including people who were involved at all, in the back of the airplane was at fault. And that is typical Hillary. She shoots first and aims later. And she's very profane. I mean, the conversations or the screaming matches I heard her have with President Clinton, epic screaming matches. And she would always win because he would realize that just like any good husband, he needed to just take it and be quiet and nod his head, which he would do. Bill would actually do that, and then he'd cheat on her. So it was a vicious cycle.
Well, he
But
cheated on her according to so many reports when he
yeah,
was governor of Arkansas. I
he
mean,
did.
you know, I mean,
He had a thing. He had a thing, and
so
it was pretty
she
obvious.
always had that over him. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just assuming because she always had his back. She always had to cover for him, including the Juanita Broderick thing, and we don't have to litigate all that right now. But she
yeah.
always, defended him and so forth. And it would have to be, I'm running things here, which is why a lot of people wondered. It's kind of funny. Two of the three last Democratic presidents, talking about Clinton and Biden, a lot of people kind of wondered
He did.
who's really running the presidency. Is it the first lady or is it the actual president? And the fact that he was such a lecher, you just kind of wonder Bill will step and fetch and do what Hillary says, or else Hillary will blow the whistle and stop backing him. And then you just wonder how much of that led to her running the show.
Oh, perfect example, and I'll tell you exactly what happened. I mean, they always were kind of a business arrangement. There was no intimacy between the two of them in my entire time there. I never even saw them holding hands. I mean, nothing. But when he got caught with the Monica thing, and she knew all about Monica. When, I know in her book she says she didn't. She did. She was well aware of him. She was the one that had Monica sent to the Pentagon away from the White House to get her away from Bill. Anyway, when he got caught, I remember the first crisis meeting that night in the residence. I just happened to be in and out, and she was basically laying down the law, and she basically became the co-president at that point in time. He lost whatever semblance of leverage he thought he had in the presidency. She took it over, and basically the discussion was, she said, "I'm not going to leave you right now, but you have to be with me as I go forward in my career." And he said, "Yeah." So that's when she became not only the co-president, but she ran all the meetings. She told him what he could say and what he couldn't say to the press. That's where the whole "this is a vast right wing conspiracy" thing came with her on
Mhm.
Today Show. That's
Yep.
where he said, "I did not have sex with that one." That was all Hillary choreographed, scripted from start to finish. And she kept her husband from being impeached. God bless her for that. And then she got the support of him from him during her Senate runs and then her presidential runs. And the only reason why they're still together today, and they don't like each other, they don't live together, they don't see each other unless they absolutely have to. The only reason is because it's mutually beneficial to them in their careers in the Clinton Foundation for them to show or have this appearance of being a married couple when in fact it's 100% business relationship.
Quid pro quo.
Yep.
I'm curious. Given the way she treated other staffers, how did
Yeah.
she treat Monica after it was confirmed? After he was caught, and I know you said she sent her away, but do you have any stories about her actually confronting Monica for being with her husband?
She brutalized the girl. She brutalized her. She wanted her basically disappeared. And then the blue dress showed up and she had to deal with the blue dress. And if that had not happened, they would have crucified Monica. I mean, they were going at it. And the one thing about the Clintons and the Clinton organization and the Clinton administration was, and I'm not saying this in a positive sense, I think I'm saying this in a very negative sense, but it was really impressive what they could do with their operatives. People like Sidney Blumenthal and John Podesta, and they were just literally vicious human beings. And she would have killed that girl. And then the blue dress showed up, and then all bets were off. And that's when they realized that they needed to change their story. They needed to back off a little bit. And now that it became all about not so much about Monica anymore. They got Monica a nice paying job up in New York, and through to their buddy Vernon Jordan. Vernon Jordan and Bill were really close. They were big golf buddies, and Vernon was a very nice man. He passed away recently, but Vernon was kind of the dirty tricks guy for Trump and for Clinton in a lot of ways in terms of like getting Monica out of Dodge, getting her a good job, getting her in New York City, getting her away. And then it became, how do we save Bill from impeachment? And then, fortunately for me, personally speaking, and very selfishly, I got to leave. I went back to the Air Force and became a commander in the Air Force Academy, and got to hand that headache over to my successor, my successor, who was also an Air Force guy, and also a really cool guy. But so I got to hit him like, okay, Dewey, you got it. Here you go, man. And
Let,
so I gave
let,
him all
let's
the
back
same
up.
briefings.
Let's back up to the Monica thing for a second because I feel
Okay.
like this is a good time to ask you about Bill losing his key code or his key
Okay.
card.
All
We're going
right.
to do
Yeah.
business
Yeah. Yeah.
talk. Tell us about
Okay.
that.
Yeah. So one of the reasons my first book is called Dereliction of Duty, uh, there were several situations I lay out in the book that really, from a military perspective, a military officer perspective, were really disappointing, and it showed me that our commander in chief was not equipped to be our commander in chief. So the morning that the Monica Lewinsky thing, I knew Monica. I knew what was going on. I had been aware of it for at least a year. The Secret Service guys were aware of it. We talked about it. We knew what was happening. And the morning that the Monica thing hit the national press, I was actually the first person on President Clinton's schedule that morning, 7 a.m. I remember distinctly because every quarter I'd go in and just talk to him about the nuclear process, just questions in general about the military, how the nuclear football worked, how the codes worked, all that kind of stuff. And this particular morning, I walked in first thing, and I saw the Washington Post headline, and it said "Sex Scandal Rocks White House." And I go, "This is not going to be a good day. This is going to be a really long day to be working in this building." So I walk into the Oval, and Bobby's behind his desk with his head in his hands. He's been up all night. His eyes are bloodshot. He knows he's been caught, right? He has been caught red-handed, and he knows it. And he had tried to blow it off for months and months and months, saying there was nothing to it, and he got caught. So I said, sir, I know this is a bad time. I can come back later. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll answer those. And I'll come back. I'll leave you alone. Give you some time, and I'll come back later. And I said, but before I leave, can I just make sure you have the codes? Because I had to. My job was to authenticate every single time that I saw him that he had those codes on his person, and he confessed that he didn't have them. He thought they might be upstairs in the residence. So I called up to the residence and had the valets scramble and Secret Service guys looking. I mean, we turned the White House upside down. Never did find them. So I went back to him that afternoon and say, "Sir,
Whoa.
we can't find them. And I got to ask you, how long has it been, do you think, since you last saw them? And if you can remember, where did you last see them? That kind of thing, like your lost car keys. Where did you last see them?" So he goes, "Well, I don't know. I can't remember." I said, "Well, has it been weeks?" He goes, "I don't know." I said, "Has it been
What?
possibly months?" He goes, "I don't know, possibly." So here is a commander in the leader of the free world who has lost his ability to launch nuclear weapons. In the event that we were attacked or we were launched from somebody else, he didn't have the ability to tell the Pentagon that he was the commander in chief. He didn't. He lost that capability, and more importantly, Bob, not only did he lose that and not say anything. I mean, that was the thing he should have done. He should have reported it immediately. "Hey, I don't know where they are. Let's get on it." He didn't say anything, so we don't know how long it was. But as I was leaving the Oval Office, the last thing he said was, "Hey, Buzz, just make sure this doesn't get to the press." He said, I can't survive this too. So I said, "Okay, sir, I won't say a word." And I called the Pentagon and told them what was going on. And they couldn't, it had never happened, Bob. Never in our history had it happened that the president actually lost the codes. So there was no process to recreate codes overnight, but they did it. They did it. And they brought me some new codes a little bit later, and I took those codes to him. And the real kicker was that the Pentagon had to change those codes with every missile silo, every nuclear submarine, every bomber across the entire world. It's not something you do, and there was no process to do it. But the Pentagon, they did it, and we went about another 12 hours without them, but then we got them. And that's one time I did call the VP and say, VP's aide, and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm not, I'm not, transferring control yet, but you might want to stand by because it might be you guys."
Wow.
Um, and never got to that, but yeah. So that's again one of the many reasons why my book is called Dereliction of Duty, and it doesn't have anything to do with Monica Lewinsky really. It's the way he prosecuted or failed to prosecute being commander in chief. Yeah, and
Yep.
in the military knew it. And the military suffered for it greatly, to the point that I thought he was the worst commander in chief in our history until Biden, and then we have a whole different animal now. So, or we did,
You're
but
working on a book. You're working on a book about Biden, aren't you?
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
that's I.
looking at the. It's not so much Biden. Well, it's Biden, but it's more importantly about what's happened to our Pentagon.
Mhm.
It's actually started under Clinton. To be honest with you, the politicalization of our Pentagon, how we promote generals became very political, and then George W. Bush kind of stemmed it for a little while, and then Obama just kicked it into overdrive, and then again, with Biden behind the wheel, which he really wasn't, it was another 4 years of Obama kicking it more higher into. That's why we're doing transgender surgeries in the military. That's why we were doing things that are so counterproductive to military order and discipline and military effectiveness, which is why I'm so thrilled to have Pete Hegseth, because finally we have a warfighter in charge of our military, and he's cleaning house, and that's exactly what we need. I mean, a lot of these 3-star and 4-star generals, they need to be
Yeah, they're
gone.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's booting a lot of them, and indeed returning the military and the Pentagon to warfighting status, and that should be number one rather than diversity and so on and so forth. But I
absolutely.
got to ask you, as a guy, the position that you held, you understand the importance of this. You worked with Pentagons. How worried were you when you saw the Signal Gate thing happen, where his national security advisor inadvertently, or somebody on his team, on Waltz's team, inadvertently adds the Atlantic guy to the thing, because a lot of people were writing articles saying that's dereliction of duty.
It is huge mess up, huge mess up. I think some of the guys in the NSC heads rolled. I mean, they Hegseth didn't send out the. So let me step back a bit. So a signal has been generally um, allowed
Mhm.
in military and diplomatic circles because it is a secure.
Because it's encrypted, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not legally. It's not authorized for that kind of information. It's not cleared cleared for that level of classification. It's not. So the fact that they were trying to do that on Signal, big mistake. Number one. Number two,
Yeah, I didn't
the
have a
guys.
problem with it. Before you get to number 2, just kick that
Yeah,
around for a second, 'cause I've been talking about it on the radio ever since it went down and writing
right.
about it too, and, um, I people are saying that it's a Signal. I use Signal because it's encrypted.
Yeah,
A lot of the
yeah,
political groups that I'm in and so on and so forth, and I like it. I've heard even President Trump said, maybe it's not the best idea because it's,
right,
as if something was wrong with Signal. To my understanding, there's nothing wrong with Signal. When you add somebody else's phone number to the chat, they're going to have access to the chat. It's not like Jeffrey
yeah,
Goldberg hacked the Signal,
right,
national security chat there, talking about that, that air attack on the Houthis. It didn't get hacked. It was an invitation. If I have a
right.
private signal and I send it to you, Buzz, and I say, hey, come on in here, and you come on in, my signal isn't a problem. I'm the problem because I added the wrong guy to it, right?
100%. But I will also tell you that it's still a gray area in terms of actually using Signal for classified information. It's still gray. Now somebody has to come out and define that, and hopefully this administration will. But then we get back to how that guy, how Goldberg got onto
Yeah.
that message chain, right?
Mhm.
So it was either a huge mistake or it was intentional on somebody's part. The guy who did it, the guy who was in charge, got fired. So I don't know what his intentions were. I don't know if it was kind of a setup for Hexeth. I don't know. Uh, I don't think it was fireable for Hexeth. I think it was fireable for NSC people.
Agreed.
And I'm going to give Pete. I know Pete. Yeah, he's a tremendous guy. Uh, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I guarantee you he's not using it anymore. I can 100% guarantee you because we already have secure sources that we can use, right? We have things that the government pays a lot of money for, a lot of ways of transmitting and communicating that are highly classified, and we've spent a lot of money on them. And I guarantee you they've gone back to those, which is what they're supposed to do. Now they're not as convenient. Signal's way more convenient because you can do Signal no matter where you are in the world. If you actually use a secure communications line, you have to be in a secure facility, and that becomes a problem. It makes it hard for someone like Hegseth, who's in, you know, uh, flying overseas to meet with his counterparts in Russia. He wants to communicate with his guys, right, and girls. So Signal seems like it's the most easily accessible, but I don't think they'll do that again. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't
And
either.
no, and
And
yeah,
and and, and President, go ahead.
you know, it'd be so easy, Bob. Here's the solution. If I was in charge of the Pentagon or national security, whatever, I'd just say, okay, let's go ahead and determine whether or not Signal is or is not a viable platform. Period. If it is, we use it. If it's not, we don't. I mean, just
Yeah,
make it simple. Do it. Don't make it a study that lasts for months, but just go, okay, can anybody crack into this? It's encrypted. So can Russia crack into this? If they can't, should be good to go. If they can, we probably should stop using it. So that's what I would do. I mean, it's just black and white.
agreed. The other guy that got fired, in addition to Waltz, who's now I guess going to be UN ambassador, but
Right.
Alex Wong, I think, was his chief
Yeah.
guy. I don't know if you
Right.
know him or know anything about him, but
I
a
know the
lot of
name.
people,
I know the name,
yeah,
but I don't know him. Yeah.
apparently, and again, this is just stuff that's been written about him. His wife and his sister or something like that are kind of more left wing type people involved in some various NGOs and what have you, and that some are suggesting it wasn't an accident, that there was a setup there to try to get Hegseth fired or something of that nature. Do you think it was inside, or do you think it was just wrong initials? Oops, we tapped the wrong guy here.
No, I think it was. Trump had a lot of internal enemies. His first four. and he's done a really good job this time, especially with his cabinet, which I think is brilliant, picking the right people for the right positions. However, there are people who are carryovers from previous, organ or administrations, or they like Waltz probably brought this guy over from the Congress,
Yeah.
uh, you know, and you're right. I mean, I people, and this won't be the last time, Bob, this happens. Somebody's
No.
gonna write a somebody's gonna write a scathing tell-all here pretty soon and call it anonymous, and then they're gonna, it's gonna make the news cycle for about a week, and then it'll fall off, and then another guy will do it. There'll be an Amorosa or somebody that'll come in there and say that they should have gotten a job that they didn't get. Like this. Who's the? I don't even want to go. I don't want to go there. But some of these guys that think that they deserve positions and they don't get them, and they get butthurt,
Yep.
and they take it out publicly. So that stuff's going to continue to
Yeah,
happen. I think it's
the
going to
deep
happen a
state is
lot less.
real. Yeah, the deep state is real. There's already been leakers, even in
Yeah,
this new
yeah,
administration. There's some stuff, and Hegseth has been firing people left and right, when it comes to
mhm,
certain things that have been leaked, really trying to clean house there. But, it's an amazing thing to me. And you can appreciate this above everybody else with your military experience and and the high level position you held, obviously carrying that football too. Um, Lloyd Austin was running the Pentagon before, and he was AWOL, not just during that month that he was in the hospital, but I mean, when
right.
is the last time during that 4 years, everybody's criticizing Hegseth as being unqualified. Well, for crying out loud, what do you call Lloyd Austin? He might have 4 stars on his collar, but what did he do honestly to improve the state of military readiness? He was never, ever, ever active. He wasn't visible. He wasn't establishing policy. And the idea that Pete Hegseth is somehow some unqualified selection that Donald Trump chose just because he likes Fox News, I say look back at the last guy. And you
Yeah.
could even talk about what the Pentagon looked like when you were there, but I mean, in all seriousness, they needed fresh blood and needed it. Look what it did for recruiting, right?
Yes.
Massive
Yes.
recruiting spike.
And here's the exactly right. And here's the lesson to all of this, Bob. Military men and women, and I don't care what rank you are. I mean, you can be, a basic boot going through Marine Corps, you know, uh, entry training, or you can be a 4-star general. Everybody, because of the nature of what we do for a living, everybody either respects and has loyalty in the chain of command, or they don't. And if they don't, you got a huge command issue because you're not going to be very effective. Austin, like you said, Austin was the Joe Biden of SecDefs. He didn't show up. He didn't bother doing anything. He did the minimum. He was in there for the 4 years. Men run, get out, make a bunch of money on a board somewhere. That was his deal. Now, for the first time, I think ever, certainly in my lifetime, we have a guy, a major, who's telling 4 stars what to do, and he's firing them. A major who's got combat experience, who knows how to talk to people, who knows how to lead people, who will show up with the troops at 6 a.m. and run 5 miles and do push-ups. Can you imagine Austin doing that or Milley doing that? None of those guys are capable, but Pete is. And that screams that screams out to the troops. It screams out to future recruits saying, you want to be in the military, you want to be in a US uniform, you want to fight for your country and do all the right things. Come in now and do this instead of going to a 4-year school and racking up $400,000 of debt and coming out as a theater major. And that's basically what what Hegseth is doing. And I tell you what, I've still got a lot of buddies that are active. I got a lot of buddies that are, 3 and 4 star retired generals. And to a man and a woman, everybody loves him because we know what it means to have esprit de corps in a unit, what it means to go to war with people who want to be a part of that unit, what it means to wear that American flag on your patch, American patch on your shoulder, and be proud of it. And we're getting back to that for the first time since the Clinton years.
Yeah,
Uh,
what Pete Hegseth models is that old phrase about speed of the leader, speed of the pack. How can the rank and
right.
file members of the Army or any of the other branches not see the Secretary of Defense out there beating them in a run, or
Yes, right.
and not make them grind harder and harder and harder. And that's how you create a military that's going to be amazing. And I say that as somebody who has not served, and I have all due respect to everybody who has, but they have to be so inspired. I imagine
It's
how you would have been when you were coming up, if the
well,
Secretary of Defense was out there running
I,
with you.
I came in under Ronald Reagan exactly because I wanted to serve Ronald Reagan. So I know what it means to have a strong leader out there that when
Yeah.
he sends you to war, he means it, and he wants you to go to war, and he wants you to do a good job. And we've gotten away from that, and now we've got Trump feels the same way that Reagan did, and Hexeth feels the same way that I do. You got to go to war with your best and your brightest, and you can't be dragging trans kids around and trying to placate them in the desert. It doesn't work out very well. Yeah, I
As
think
we're
we're on an upward trajectory, and I think again from the military standpoint, it's so black and white. When you have a leader, you want to put your life on the line for them, and your brothers and sisters' lives on the line. You know, you want to help want to help the guy right next to you, and nobody wanted to do that under Lloyd Austin. Nobody wanted to do that
Amen.
under Joe Biden. Nobody wanted to do it under Bill Clinton. I mean, people left in droves under Clinton too. But now they're going to come back because of Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth.
Buzz, we've only got like 1 or 2 minutes left here. Give me a teaser on what the Biden book is going to be like. And the reason I ask is you could almost entitle it Dereliction of Duty 2,
Yeah,
because now we know literally, and most of us knew already, but now those who were in the know, who denied it and covered up his mental faculties, his cognitive decline. He's got cancer. He's had to have had it for a while.
right.
Any number of things could have happened there that would have led to a President Harris. I think that's a dereliction of duty. He was calling lids every day at 1 o'clock or at
Right.
noon because he could not function. Can you give us a little teaser on what the Biden
Well,
book's
that's
going to be?
exactly where that's exactly where I'm going, and I'm also going to go. As much as I'm going to look at Biden and just his lack of ability to be a commander in chief, I'm also going to look at all the ways the Pentagon was politicized, and what we have to do to get back to being a lean, mean fighting machine. You know what I mean? I think and Hickseth is playing right into my hands because I kind of was thinking about someone like Pete when I started writing this book, and then we have Pete, and it's all coming together. So I'm going to talk. Yeah. So as bad as I thought Bill Clinton was, and I think I say this in my foreword of the book, that I hope this is a clarion call for all Americans to when they go to the polls and vote for a president, they're voting for a commander in chief. More than anything else, more importantly than anything else, they're voting for a commander in chief. We failed with Clinton miserably. And I thought I was writing a clarion call saying, let's never do this again, guys. Let's never go down this path again. And it got even worse with
Yeah.
Biden, much worse. So I'm going to try to compare those two and say, you know what? I was wrong. It can get a hell of a lot worse. And it has. And then this is where we go from here. So it's a lot of fun to write. I'm having a good time with it. It
What are you looking
changes
at?
every.
Are you looking at 2025 by the end of the year, or not so much till after finish?
Probably late 2025, early 2026. Yeah.
Okay, just as
Uh,
long as it's in time for the midterms.
that's what I'm shooting for. I'm shooting
Yeah.
for spring before the midterms, so it can kind of impact there a little bit, and it gives me another reason to go out on the road and talk about the good things that we're doing in this country now and the bad things that used to be happening in this country now. So it gives me both a book to hawk, but also a message to sing, and
Amen.
I like having both of those. And I'll get invited to my normal stuff anyway, but it gives me that opportunity to reach even more people with a bigger impact.
Well, I'm so glad you're doing it. And I'm going to close with a criticism, if I may.
Sure.
This is what a cynic would say. Great job on the Clinton book. Great job on writing the Biden book. Where the hell's the Obama book? You skipped somebody.
I didn't though. Conduct Unbecoming, my third book.
Oh, well, I didn't read that one.
Yeah,
That's a
it's out. It's
problem.
about Obama. In fact, it's got Obama bowing to the Chinese guy, and the Chinese guy's laughing. That's the cover.
That's one of the most amazing moments ever when he bowed. Unbelievable. He
Yeah.
bowed to everybody. I think he bowed to the valet every time he got out of the
He
car. I mean, he bowed.
apologized to the rest of the world for us, and it's like,
Yeah,
"God, dude,
yeah, he
no."
did. Wow. All right. So I said I was going to end with some criticism. The criticism is of me because I didn't know. All right, Buzz. Really, really tremendous conversation. Your stories are incredible. Your experience is amazing. Thank you for your service in to the country in the Air Force, carrying the nuclear football, being such a central part of all of that, and for telling the real stories that everybody needs to know. We appreciate it, and I appreciate you spending the time with us.
Thanks for having me, Bob. Anytime. And I got to end this with it was a privilege to serve. I wouldn't change a single day. Greatest thing that ever happened to me, and it shaped my life forever. But yeah, thanks for having me. And again, anytime, man, I'll be happy
Well,
to come.
the next time will be when that Biden book is ready to be released. Let's do it
Okay,
again.
okay, I got to
Yeah.
get on it then. Alrighty.
Thank you, Buzz. Appreciate it.
Okay, take care, Bob.
All right.
See you.
Thanks. All right, that's going to do it for Strictly Speaking. Do not forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you follow Buzz. His Twitter handle, Buzz Patterson's Twitter handle, is something you absolutely want to do. He's got around 450,000 people waiting for his next story on Hillary Clinton. Make sure you follow him. Make sure you follow Strictly Speaking as well. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.